Thus, if I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Sawati in Jeta's Grove, Anathan Pendika's Park. Then when it was evening, the Venerable Mahakohita rose from meditation. With his students, he went to the Venerable Sariputta, who was sitting with his students, and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side and said to the Venerable Sariputta, one who is unwise is said, friend, with reference to what was this said, one who is unwise. One does not wisely understand. One does not wisely understand, friend. That's why it is said, one who is unwise. And what doesn't one wisely understand? One doesn't wisely understand this is suffering. Now we're going to go through the noble truths, but we're not talking about surface noble truths. We're talking about how the links of dependent origination. Each link has the Four Noble Truths in it. And I will show you that in just a moment. Okay, this is from the Samyutta Nikaya. Monk says to those ascetics and Brahmins who do not understand these things, the origin of these things means the First Noble Truth. The cessation of these things and the way leading to the cessation of these things. What are those things that they do not understand? Whose origins they don't understand, whose cessation they don't understand, and the way leading to whose cessation they don't understand. They don't understand aging and death, First Noble Truth. Its origin, Second Noble Truth, its cessation, and the way leading to its cessation. They do not understand birth. They do not understand habitual tendency. They do not understand clinging. They don't understand craving. They don't understand feeling or contact or the six sense bases. Mentality and materiality, consciousness, formations. Their origin, their cessation, and way leading to their cessation. So right there it says there's Four Noble Truths in every link. And this is the deeper kind of teaching, okay? These are the things they don't understand, whose origin they don't understand, whose cessation they don't understand, and the way leading to cessation they don't understand. These I do not consider to be ascetics among ascetics or Brahmin among Brahmins. These venerable ones do not understand by realizing it for themselves with direct knowledge in this very life and dwell in the goal of asceticism and the goal of Brahmanhood. And that means if you don't understand dependent origination, you're not going to be able to attain Nibbana. Okay. And if you do understand these things, then you will attain Nibbana. You have the potential to attain Nibbana. Okay. One doesn't wisely understand this is the origin of suffering. One does not wisely understand this is the cessation of suffering. One does not wisely understand this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. One does not wisely understand. One does not wisely understand. Friend, that's why it is said, one who is unwise. Okay, so one of the things that you really have to understand is the links of dependent origination is the backbone of the Buddhist teaching. And if you don't learn about the backbone, if you don't see it for yourself, you're not going to be able to attain Nibbana. Saying, good friend, the Venerable Mahakohita delighted and rejoiced in the Venerable Sariputta's words. Mahakohita was foremost in sitting in meditation. He was always sitting in meditation. And he knew the answers to these, but he was asking these questions for his students so they could hear. Then he asked him a further question. One who is unwise, or one who is wise. One who is wise is said, friend, with reference to what was this said, one who is wise. One wisely understands. One wisely understands, friend. That's why it is said, one who is wise. What does one wisely understand? One wisely understands this is suffering. One wisely understands this is the origin of suffering. One wisely understands this is the cessation of suffering. One wisely understands this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. Anytime you hear wise or wisdom in Buddhist literature, it is referring to dependent origination. Consciousness. Consciousness is said, friend, with reference to what is consciousness said. It cognizes. It cognizes. That means it sees as it's happening what is happening. That is why consciousness is said. What does it cognize? It cognizes this is pleasant. It cognizes this is painful. It cognizes this is neither painful nor pleasant. It cognizes, friend. That's why consciousness is said. Wisdom and consciousness, friend, are these states conjoined or disjoined? And is it possible to separate each of these states from the other in order to describe the difference between them? Wisdom and consciousness, friend, these states are conjoined, not disjoined, and it's impossible to separate each of these states from the other in order to describe the difference between them. Listen closely. For what one wisely understands, that one cognizes. What one cognizes, that one wisely understands. That is why these states are conjoined, not disjoined. And it's impossible to separate each of these states from the other in order to describe the difference between them. What is the difference, friend, between wisdom and consciousness, these states that are conjoined, not disjoined? The difference, friend, between wisdom and consciousness, these states that are conjoined, not disjoined, this is Listen closely. Wisdom is to be developed. Consciousness is to be fully understood. Okay? Feeling. Feeling is said, friend, with reference to what is feeling said. It feels. It feels, friend. That's why feeling is said. What does it feel? It feels pleasure. It feels pain. It feels neither pain nor pleasure. It feels, friend. That's why feeling is said. Perception. Perception, friend, with reference to what is perception said. It perceives. That means it names. And there's also memory in perception. That is why perception is said. What does it perceive? Now it's going to talk about colors right now. But that is the very start of conceptual thinking. We only think in concepts. Okay? This is why Nibbana is such a different kind of state, because it's no more concepts. There is no more becoming after when you attain Nibbana at that moment. It perceives blue, it perceives yellow, it perceives red, it perceives white. It perceives, friend. That's why perception is said. Feeling, perception, and consciousness, friend, are these states conjoined or disjoined? And is it possible to separate each of these states from the others in order to describe the difference between them? Feeling, perception, and consciousness, friend, these states that are conjoined, not disjoined. And it's impossible to separate each of these states from the others in order to describe the difference between them. Listen closely. What one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, that one cognizes. That is why these states are conjoined, not disjoined. And it's impossible to separate each of these states from the others in order to describe the difference between them. Knowable by mind alone. Friend, what can be known by purified mind consciousness, released from the 5 faculties? Friend, by purified mind consciousness, released from the 5 faculties, the base of infinite space can be known. Now, when you get to infinite space, the feeling of loving kindness changes to a feeling of compassion. And they are definitely different kinds of feeling. That's why this meditation is a little bit different than other meditations, because it's not a mental exercise. This is a feeling exercise. The base of infinite space with joy. The compassion changes to a feeling of joy. Can be known thus. Consciousness is infinite. When you get into these states, there is no more 5 faculties. Now you're in strictly a mental realm. So when you come to me and tell me about a meditation pain in your body, it's not in your body, it's in mind. And when a meditation pain arises, it is a feeling and perception and consciousness that arises at that time and pulls your attention away, and you 6R and come back. What almost everybody does with this kind of feeling, meditation pain, is resist it. I don't like it, I don't want it there, and they tighten their mind around it and not see that aversion to it. So when you have true mindfulness, you see that that is what's there right at that moment. Yes, it's painful, but it's only a feeling. It's not my feeling. I don't try to control it. I don't need to do anything with it but allow it to be there and use your 6Rs with it. Eventually, the feeling will start to fade away if you don't feed it with your attention. The 6Rs is right effort. And right effort says, the second part, release it. Don't keep your attention on it. And relax. Bring up something wholesome. Smile. Light mind. And bring that light mind back to your object of meditation. You'll see that when that feeling comes up, and it's a painful something in your shoulder, in your back, in your buttock, wherever it happens to be, the first thing your mind wants to do is grab onto it. I don't like that feeling. And it's like taking a hot coal and putting it in your hand, and you say, oh, that's hot, that hurts. So what you naturally try to do is try to squeeze around it and squeeze it tighter and tighter, and you say, oh, that really, really hurts. And that's exactly the opposite of what you want to do. You want to say, yes, that hurts, but you don't have to hold on to it. It's there, it's painful, okay. Did I ask this pain to come up? No. It's just a hindrance. So you allow it to be there by itself. And come back to your object of meditation with a happy mind after relaxing. And the base of nothingness can be known. There is nothing. When this happens, you will experience deep equanimity. Now, when you get to the fourth jhana, you get to equanimity. But this is even a deeper kind of equanimity. It's always kind of fun for me because people come up and start talking about nothing being there, and their voices. And I ask them questions, and their voice is, everything is fine. There's no excitement in their voice at all. So it's a real interesting state to be in. And staying with that feeling of equanimity as your object of meditation is what you need to do until you go deeper into the meditation. Friend, with what does one understand a state that can be known? That's an interesting question. Friend, one understands a state that can be known with the eye of wisdom. One of the famous stupas in Nepal has that eye. Okay, and that's talking about the eye of wisdom, understanding how that process works. It's seeing without thoughts, just observing. You're just cognizing it. And being very conscious of that. Friend, what is the purpose of wisdom? The purpose of wisdom, friend, is direct knowledge. Its purpose is full understanding. Its purpose is abandoning. And as you start noticing with your mindfulness little tiny movements of mind's attention and you relax into that, you're starting to abandon these links that arise until you get to what's called an unconditioned state. There's nothing else to arise. And that's what Nibbana is. It's the unconditioned. Right view. Friend, how many conditions are there for the arising of right view? Friend, there are 2 conditions for the arising of right view. The voice of another. And we're not talking about my voice, we're talking about the Buddha's voice through the suttas. And wise attention. These are the 2 conditions for the arising of right view. Friend, by how many factors is right view assisted when it has deliverance of mind for its fruit, deliverance of mind for its fruit and path and fruition? When it has deliverance of mind by wisdom for its path and deliverance by wisdom for its path and fruition. Friend, right view is assisted by 5 factors when it has deliverance of mind for its path, deliverance of mind for its path and fruition. When it has deliverance of mind by wisdom for its path and deliverance by wisdom for its path and fruition. Here, friend, right view is assisted by virtue, keeping your precepts without breaking them. Learning, discussion, serenity, that means jhana, and insight. And you've already had some insights into how these things work, and they're real oh-wows when you see them. When I first came back to America, I wanted to call this the oh-wow meditation. But I got talked out of it. Right view is assisted by these factors. Has deliverance of mind for its path, deliverance of mind for its path and fruition. It has deliverance by wisdom for its path, deliverance by wisdom for its path and fruition. Friend, how many kinds of being are there? Now, when I start talking about this is a Pali word, bhava. Bhikkhu Bodhi uses the word becoming, he also uses the word experience. And I don't like either one of those because it's not close enough to what it actually is. When I'm talking about habitual tendencies, I'm just talking about one of these kind of beings. You experience the others on your own when you get into jhana, when you get into a rupa jhana. So the sense sphere being, that's the one I'm talking about mostly, where the emotional states are and how to let go of those emotional states and that sort of thing. The fine material being means the first four jhanas. The immaterial being means the four states of immaterial jhana. Friend, how is renewal of being in the future generated? Friend, renewal of being in the future is generated through the delighting in this and that on the part of beings who are hindered by ignorance, not understanding how this process works, and fettered by craving. Okay, so you're using the 6 R's and you're teaching yourself about how the links of dependent origination work, even though you don't notice that you're doing it until you get into the deeper states. Friend, how is renewal of being in the future not generated? Friend, with the fading away of ignorance, with the arising of true knowledge, and with the cessation of craving, renewal of being in the future is not generated. So now you start to get more and more a feeling of how important the 6 R's are. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the first jhana. And what is the first jhana? Here, friend, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states. That means no hindrances in your mind at all. A monk enters upon and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thinking and examining thought, with joy and happiness born of seclusion. This is called the first jhana. Now the thing you have to understand is you can be in the first jhana while you're walking, while you're doing other things. And that's been a point of contention ever since I've come back from Asia, because I tell people that they can be even in the fourth jhana while they're walking around. And, oh no, when you get to the fourth jhana, you don't feel your body at all. Yeah, that's true. You don't feel your body. But mind has equanimity in it. And you can do all kinds of tasks without getting caught up in thinking about, and be in the fourth jhana, where there's true balance, where a loud sound happens, like a flash of light, thunder, like happened a little while ago. It was a big, loud one. But it does, if your mindfulness is good, it doesn't make your mind shake. It doesn't make your mind go to it and start thinking about it. Your mind just says, oh, well, that sound just goes right through. Doesn't upset. Friend, how many factors does the first jhana have? Friend, the first jhana has 5 factors. Here, when a monk has entered upon the first jhana, there occur thinking, examining thought, joy, happiness, and unification of mind. Now, can you have those states in your mind while you're walking around doing different tasks? Of course. If you're practicing one-pointed concentration, no, you can't. Because as soon as your concentration slips a little bit, you have hindrances arising. When you're in the jhana, the hindrances will not arise. If your mindfulness, your observation of how things move is weak, then you're not in the jhana anymore. You're caught by a hindrance. Friend, how many factors are abandoned in the first jhana and how many factors are possessed? Friend, in the first jhana, 5 factors are abandoned and 5 factors are possessed. Here, when a monk has entered upon the first jhana, sensual desire is abandoned. Ill will is abandoned. Sleepiness and dullness are abandoned. Restlessness and anxiety are abandoned. And doubt is abandoned. Doubt as to whether you're doing the practice correctly or not. And there occurs thinking, examining thought, joy, happiness, and unification of mind. That is how the first jhana have 5 factors are abandoned and 5 factors are possessed. Now we get to the 5 faculties. Friend, these 5 faculties each have a separate field, a separate domain, and do not experience each other's field and domain. You don't smell through your ear. That's basically what it's saying. That is the eye faculty, ear faculty, nose faculty, tongue faculty, and body faculty. Now, of these 5 factors, each having their own separate field, their own separate domain, do not experience each other's field and domain. What is their resort? What experiences their fields and domains? Friend, these 5 faculties each have a separate field, a separate domain, and do not experience each other's field and domain. That is the eye faculty, ear faculty, nose faculty, tongue faculty, and body faculty. Now, these 5 faculties, each having a separate field and a separate domain, do not experience each other's field and domain. They have mind as their resort, and mind experiences their fields and domains. Friend, as to these 5 faculties, that is the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body faculty, what do these 5 faculties stand in dependence on? Interesting question. Friend, as to these 5 faculties, that is the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, these 5 faculties stand in dependence on vitality. Friend, what does vitality stand in dependence on? Vitality stands in dependence on heat. Friend, what does heat stand in dependence on? You're going to love this answer. Heat stands in dependence on vitality. Just now, friend, we understood the Venerable Sariputta to have said vitality stands in dependence on heat. And now we understand him to say heat stands in dependence on vitality. How should the meaning of this statement be regarded? That's a reasonable question, I would say. In that case, friend, I shall give you a simile, for some wise men here understand the meaning of a statement by means of a simile. Just as when an oil lamp is burning, its radiance is seen in dependence on its flame, and its flame is seen in dependence on its radiance. Got it? So too, vitality stands in dependence on heat, and heat stands in dependence on vitality. Vital formations. Friends, are vital formations things that can be felt, or are vital formations one thing and things that can be felt another? Vital formations, friend, are not things that can be felt. If vital formation were things that can be felt, then a monk who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness would not be seen to emerge from it. When you're in the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness, you don't know you're in that state until you come out. When you come out, you go, whoa, what was that? Because vital formations are one thing and things that can be felt another. A monk who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness can be seen to emerge from it. Now this happens by itself when the conditions are right, when all of the awakening factors are in balance. Friend, when this body is bereft of how many states, is it then discarded and forsaken, left lying senseless like a log? Friend, when the body is bereft of 3 states, vitality, heat, and consciousness, it is then discarded and forsaken, left lying senseless like a log. Friend, what is the difference between one who is dead, who has completed his time, and a person who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness? Friend, in the case of one who is dead, who has completed his time, his bodily formations have ceased and subsided. His verbal formations have ceased and subsided. His mental formations have ceased and subsided. His vitality is exhausted. His heat has been dissipated, and his faculties are fully broken up. In the case of a monk or a person who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness, his bodily formations have ceased and subsided. His verbal formations have ceased and subsided. His mental formations have ceased and subsided, but his vitality is not exhausted. His heat has not been dissipated, and his faculties become exceptionally clear. This is the difference between one who is dead and completed his time and a person who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness. When somebody has experienced Nibbana, their face becomes very radiant and very beautiful. And you can see that. You can see that radiance coming off of them. Anytime you see somebody that's very radiant, it's a good idea to give them something, because you're making a huge amount of merit when you do that. Friend, how many conditions are there for the attainment of neither painful nor pleasant deliverance of mind? Friend, there are 4 conditions for the attainment of the neither painful nor pleasant deliverance of mind. Now we're talking about getting into the fourth jhana. Here, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, with the previous disappearance of joy and grief, a monk enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure. It's just talking about being with equanimity and purity of mindfulness due to that equanimity. These are the four states for the attainment of neither painful nor pleasant feeling, or deliverance of mind. Friend, how many conditions are there for the attainment of the signless deliverance of mind? The signless deliverance of mind means getting into the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness. Friend, there are two conditions for the attainment of the signless deliverance of mind. Non-attention to all signs, so you don't see anything arising. And this says attention to the signless element. Attention to the signless element infers that there's somebody there to observe it. But if there's no consciousness, how can there be attention? So, this is something that was put in as a formula, and they just followed the formula without thinking about how they were translating it. These are the two conditions for the attainment of signless deliverance of mind. Friend, how many conditions are there for the persistence of the signless deliverance of mind? Friend, there are three conditions for the persistence of the signless deliverance of mind. Non-attention to all signs. This says attention to the signless element when there is no attention that's there. And prior determination of its duration. Now, I talked to you about making determinations. Before you go to sleep, make a determination you're going to wake up smiling and happy. And make a determination of the time. When I was in Burma, and I was going quite deep in the meditation teacher said, "How's your mindfulness?" I said, "Yeah, it's pretty good." He said, "Do you wake up on the in-breath or the out-breath?" And I went, "I don't know." So I went to sleep that night, and I was waking up about every half hour to see whether I was waking up on the in-breath or the out-breath. I went to the next interview, and I was tired because I didn't get enough sleep. But I found out that I was waking up on the out-breath. I don't know if it's that way for everybody. You check for yourself if you're really that interested. These are the three conditions for the persistence of the signless deliverance of mind. Now, when you get into the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness, you can make a determination to stay in that state for long periods of time, up to 7 days. I have students in Indonesia that can do this sort of thing. They haven't gone that long, but they can go for 24 hours pretty easily. Takes some practice to be able to get into it for longer. But I told them that they had to start putting a sign write a little note in front of them, "Don't disturb me," because their family members come up and they get real excited if they don't see you breathing. And they could, let's take him to the hospital, we have to get him breathing again. And you can wake up with somebody pounding on your chest trying to get your breathing going. You wouldn't know that until the end of the determination. So you make a little sign saying, "There's nothing wrong, I'll be back in a little while. Just let me do the meditation this way." Friend, how many conditions are there for the emergence of the signless deliverance of mind? Friend, there's 2 conditions for the emergence of the signless deliverance of mind. Attention to all signs and non-attention to the signless element. So there is, when you come out of that state, you don't want to be attacked by people and how is this, and asking a lot of questions. You feel like being secluded and very peaceful and very calm and very uplifted. It's a wonderful feeling. These are the 2 conditions for the emergence of the signless deliverance of mind. Friend, the immeasurable deliverance of mind, that is the Brahma Viharas, the deliverance of mind through nothingness, the deliverance of mind through voidness, and the signless deliverance of mind. Are these states different in meaning and different in name? Or are they one in meaning and different in name only? Friend, the immeasurable deliverance of mind, the deliverance of mind through nothingness, the deliverance of mind through voidness. We'll talk about voidness in a moment. And the signless deliverance of mind. There is a way in which these states are different in meaning and different in name, and there is a way in which they are one in meaning and different in name only. What, friend, is a way in which these states are different in meaning and different in name? Here a monk abides pervading 1/4 with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the 2nd, likewise the 3rd, likewise the 4th. So above, below, around, and everywhere. Does that sound familiar to the people that are doing that? Sounds like 6 directions to me. And to all as to himself, he abides pervading all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. He abides pervading 1/4 of his mind with compassion. And it goes through that whole thing again, the 6 directions. He abides providing 1/4 of his mind imbued. Now this is something that they put in from the commentary. They haven't figured out. They call it altruistic joy. And it's the joy you feel for other people's success. Now that doesn't have anything to do with the meditation. Not here. It's just joy. And this kind of joy is the all-pervading joy. It doesn't have the excitement in it, but it is a happy feeling. And your mind is quite alert and bright. He abides pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with equanimity, likewise the second, third, and fourth, so above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself. He abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with one of these Brahma Viharas, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. This is called the immeasurable deliverance of mind. And what, friend, is the deliverance of mind through nothingness? Here, with the complete surmounting of the base of infinite consciousness, aware that there is nothing. This is where mind stops looking outside of itself. And this is where you start using your equanimity as your object of meditation. And if you try to stay with that object with a little bit too much energy, you get restless. If not quite enough, you get dull. So you have to learn how to adjust at this level. You might have to adjust a few times in a sitting. A monk enters upon and abides in the base of nothingness. This is called the deliverance of mind through nothingness. And what, friend, is a deliverance of mind through voidness? Here, a person gone to the forest, the root of a tree, an empty hut, reflects thus: this is void of a self, or of what belongs to a self. Oh, I did about 6 months, I think I mentioned this before, I did about 6 months of questioning every thought. Where did that come from? Is that me? Is that mine? Every feeling, every sensation. I kept on looking at it, and it made my mind go very deep in meditation because of seeing the impersonal nature of everything. This is called the deliverance of mind through voidness. And what, friend, is the signless deliverance of mind? Here, with non-attention to all signs, a monk enters upon and abides in the signless collectedness of mind. This is called the signless deliverance of mind. This is the way in which these states are different in meaning and different in name. And what, friend, is the way in which these states are one in meaning and different in name only? Lust is a maker of measurement. Hate is a maker of measurement. Delusion is a maker of measurement. Lust, hatred, delusion. I like it, I don't like it, I am that. Another way of describing craving. In a monk whose taints are destroyed, these are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with, so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Every time you 6R, you have a clear spot right after that where your mind is bright, your mind is alert. But there's no thoughts. Of all the kinds of immeasurable deliverance of mind, the unshakable deliverance of mind is pronounced the best. Now that unshakable deliverance of mind is void of lust, void of hate, and void of delusion. No more craving. Lust is a something. Hate is a something. Delusion is a something. In a monk whose taints are destroyed, These are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with, so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Of all the kinds of deliverance of mind through nothingness, the unshakable deliverance of mind is pronounced the best. So it's saying that you can attain Nibbana even in the lower, although I encourage people to go through all of them so they can recognize it. Now that unshakable deliverance of mind is void of lust, void of hate, and void of delusion. Lust is a maker of signs, nimittas. Lust is a maker of signs. Hate is a maker of signs. Delusion is a maker of signs. In a monk whose taints are destroyed, these are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with, so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Of all the kinds of signless deliverance of mind, the unshakable deliverance of mind is pronounced the best. Now that unshakable deliverance of mind is void of lust, void of hate, and void of delusion. This is the way in which these states are one in meaning and different in name only. That's what the Venerable Sariputta said. The Venerable Mahakohita was satisfied and delighted in the Venerable Sariputta's words. So this gives you something to consider. This is quite a deep sutta. It's not a lightweight sutta at all. Seeing that everything is impermanent, everything is a source of unsatisfactoriness because it's there. And it's impersonal. There's no controller. There's only being able to observe it. As you start recognizing that more and more, it gets real easy to see lust arise. It's a maker of this sign. What sign is it? I like it. I want it. That's the craving coming up. Hate is a maker of signs. I don't want it. I don't like it. I want it to stop. I want it to go away. And delusion, taking it all personally and thinking that it's you're the one that's causing this to arise. But it's an impersonal process. So learning to let go of all signs and just seeing it as it actually is with proper wisdom, that means you're seeing everything as part of a process instead of this is how my mind works, and my mind. It's not your mind. It arises because of past actions. What you do with what arises in the present dictates what happens in the future. Okay? As you see this distraction and you 6R and allow it to be, you're purifying your mind every time you do that. And eventually, the 6Rs will start to become automatic. And you'll see that something just begins to come up and your mind just runs the 6Rs and rolls right over it, and now your mind is clear. It takes a while. It doesn't happen right away. That's why you need to develop your patience. and your understanding. This is how it works. That's why the definition that I give you for mindfulness, it works 100% of the time, because your job is to remember to observe how mind's attention moves from one thing to another. Not try to control it, not try to make it be something, but observe it and relax into it and let it be there by itself. So with this definition of mindfulness, you have more and more a tendency to see the impersonal nature of everything much more easily. And that's why you hear me talk about the 6 R's all the time. This is going to take you all the way to Nibbana, to Arahatship, to getting off the wheel, letting go of the craving and the ignorance. When you use the 6 R's, it becomes more and more clear how this process works, and you start catching it a little quicker and a little quicker, until finally there's no more conditions for it to arise. That's Nibbana. Sounds good to me, anyway.